So on the Bootstrap website, I'm going to go back to getting started and do the introduction. On the introduction page on the left, you have the quick start guide. It shows you how to bring in just the CSS, just the JavaScript, or a bundle of both, how to bring them in separately. And then if you scroll a little bit further down, there's a starter template. The starter template should look pretty familiar. You should know that every HTML file starts with a doc type. It then has an HTML open and close tag that contains everything for the page. You'll then see that it has a head tag and it has a body tag. Those two tags you should also recognize because in the head, we put information that the user needs but doesn't necessarily need to see. And then the body tag is going to contain the structure or what we're wanting on the page. And then look at that. You even have an H1 inside of there that says, "Hello World." You should also recognize the title tag, which controls this tab up at the top here whenever you open it up in a browser. And you should recognize a link tag because we brought in our own CSS before using a link tag. The new features are meta tags, which allow the computer to know more about your browser and set certain settings right at the front. And then down below are some optional script tags for JavaScript, and we're going to leave those alone because they actually bring in some great features and we need those as well. So this should look pretty familiar, and what I want you to keep in mind as we work through Bootstrap is you may not know everything, but you should be able to read through this and pick out the pieces that you do know for editing. So what we're going to do now is go ahead and open up Dreamweaver. And if you haven't opened up Dreamweaver yet, go ahead and put that on your computer and pause the video here. We're going to create a new page. This new page is going to be an HTML page, and you can see even they have a Bootstrap tab up here at the top where you could bring in Bootstrap if you wanted to. We're going to do none and learn how to bring it in manually. So we're going to click Create. When we click Create, you can see there should be some familiar tags again. A doc type, an HTML tag, a head tag, a meta tag, title, and body. Hey, that kind of matches the starter template we just looked at. In addition, the starter template contained all of these things. So what we're going to do is we're going to select everything on this page and delete it. We're then going to go to the Bootstrap website, and up in the top right of the starter template, there's a copy to clipboard option. We're going to copy all of that code, go back to Dreamweaver, and paste it. Then we have all of the tags that we need, and you'll see if you click up in your preview if you need to, it should now say Hello World. What I want to point out is that is not the default font that we usually see for Hello World. If I go ahead, you don't need to do this, but if I go ahead and open up a new HTML file and create an H1 tag in the body that says Hello World, you'll notice that's not the font that it used. It also has some spacing above it and spacing below it. It's also not the same size. So what you can see here is that automatically by bringing in this CSS right here, it's pulling all the settings for H1. Now, going back to our notepad here, if I go up to the top and I look to find an H1 tag, you're going to see there's H1s all over the place, and there's lots of different settings that they're bringing in. But you can see they've reduced a margin on the top and the bottom, they've got a font weight, they've got a line height, and then you can see the H1 gets called upon again for a font size and having more information there. The setting for the font is actually coming from the body tag, remember, that we looked at in the last video, showing you what that body is supposed to be using for the font, which is everything inside of here. So if I click after the H1 and I go ahead and type my name, you'll see that it will also be in the same font, just a smaller, less bold version of that font because it's pulling it for the browser. What I also want to point out by bringing in the starter template is that when they update their CSS, our CSS can quickly update as well. When they update their JavaScript, we can also do the same thing. So this is important to note because we don't have to keep downloading the files and re-bringing them in. You can also see that bootstrap.min.css and bootstrap.bundle.min.js are now tabbed up here because we've linked them in. And when we click on them, it's going to say that it can't fetch the version because it's actually got to go to the web to grab it, and it says up here that it's a remote file and cannot be edited. So now that we brought in the CSS, let's go ahead and see if we can actually change it. Before we get to that, let's save this file. I'm going to close that example file I made. This entitled one file, I'm going to go File, Save As. What we're going to do is go to our Digital Design 2 folder. I would like you to create a new folder in there for example website. I put no spaces. Inside that folder, I'm going to name this index, because it's my homepage, and every homepage of every website ever made is called index.html. And I'm going to go ahead and save that. And then in the next video, we're going to learn how to override the CSS and put in our own little flair.